Good morning, everybody, and thanks for your patience this morning and for jumping on the call. It's Josh Earnest with the Obama campaign. We're pleased to be joined today by some of our strongest supporters on the campaign to sort of give you an update on the state of the race. Joining us today is Senator John Kerry, Senator Claire McCaskill, Governor Deval Patrick, Governor Janet Napolitano, and Senator Amy Klobuchar. But to get us started this morning, let me introduce our campaign manager, David Plouffe.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us this morning. Last night, first I'd start by another two contests where we saw record-breaking turnout, which I think bodes well for our party this fall. Huge turnouts in both Indiana and North Carolina. North Carolina will certainly be a battleground state in an Obama-McCain matchup, and we think that Indiana also has the potential to be a surprisingly competitive race in the fall. Also mention another night where John McCain, despite being the nominee, is losing about a quarter of the Republican vote, and that does not include those that participated in the Democratic primary in Indiana at Rush Limbaugh's urging, which we think had was a clear factor in the outcome. Just quickly, where we see things from a delegate standpoint, right now the North Carolina split in terms of delegate is 66 Obama, 49 Clinton. That's a net gain of 17 for Senator Obama. There's a chance that could go up to 19, but as of now it's 17. Indiana is a 38-34 split, Clinton-Obama, so Senator Clinton netted 4. So our net, as it stands from last night, is 13 delegates, which puts our pledged delegate lead at 172, which is the largest it's been in the entire campaign, bigger than it was in March and bigger than it was pre-Pennsylvania. So it's a high water mark. There's only 217 pledged delegates left. We are only 33 pledged delegates from achieving a majority of the pledged delegates. That will happen on the night of May 20th, which we think will be an incredibly important moment in the campaign when Senator Obama clinches the majority of the delegates, which is the expression of the will of the voters in these contests. Overall now, our number needed to nominate is 172, and we have been making great progress in the superdelegate world over the last couple weeks. I mentioned post-Pennsylvania, where Senator Clinton had a 9-point win during the Reverend Wright episode of last week. We still led Senator Clinton in superdelegate endorsements during that period 2-1. So we can see the finish line here. We're only 172 superdelegate or total delegates away from the nomination, and we're just going to keep campaigning as hard as we can and continuing to make the case to superdelegates that Barack Obama would be the strongest nominee in November. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce Senator John Kerry, who's been working so very hard for us and a source of great advice and counsel for Senator Obama and the entire campaign.
Well, David, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you and with my other colleagues and to join in those who are listening. In my judgment last night, Barack Obama took a giant and a decisive stride towards the nomination. And the very tight finish in Indiana and his huge win in North Carolina have fundamentally changed this race. The bottom line, he clearly did more than he had to, and she did not achieve what she had to. Barack was expected, by all accounts, to lose Indiana by a sizable margin, and she had the support of the biggest political name and family in the state who put everything on the line. And despite the toughest weeks of his campaign, and the most thorough testing that you could have imagined, with not the ideal dynamics going into either of these primaries, he beat every poll and he beat every single expectation. That's significant. And I think, frankly, if it hadn't been for Republicans taking Democratic ballots, he likely would have won in Indiana, too. So you have, really, there's no masquerade now. Rush Limbaugh was tampering with the primary, and the GOP has clearly declared that they want Hillary Clinton as a candidate. So I think last night was a very important night for the campaign and for those of us who support Barack and for the country. But if there's any lesson learned, it is that you've got to fight for every single vote. You take absolutely nothing for granted. And I know that Barack and the campaign intend to do exactly that over the course of the next days. And it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, who's been just a terrific force in this campaign, and I think has made a very significant contribution, Claire McCaskill.
Thank you, John, very much. I thought last night was extraordinary in a lot of ways. First of all, Barack Obama squared off against the electability argument, and he won. He took body blows, and he survived with grace, composure, confidence, and frankly with the trust of the voters. And that trust argument, I think, is going to transfer into this electability in November, because the voters have figured out he's not just going to tell them what they want to hear. He is going to be realistic with them. He's going to respect them, and he's going to only campaign on truth. And I think that really helped him. You can tell where it helped him with some very key demographics in terms of electability. He improved with the Catholic voters. He improved with white women. And importantly, he improved with union households. With all of the aura of him supposedly not connecting with working families, by a significant margin, he did better in union households last night. And I think that's important as we move toward the nomination. And then finally, being from Missouri, I understand how presidential elections are won and lost. The ultimate electability argument is all about the independent voter. And Barack Obama has, from day one, connected with independent voters in this country, and they are the ones that decide presidential elections. It's not people who call themselves Democrats. It's not people who call themselves Republicans. It's people who call themselves independents. And he is continuing to show great strength with independent voters. And I know that that bodes very, very well for us in terms of avoiding a third George Bush presidency in terms of another 4 years of George Bush policies. And with that, I will turn it over to the next speaker, who is a terrific leader in one of those states that is in play because of Barack Obama's success, and that is Janet Napolitano, the governor of Arizona.
Well, thank you, Claire. And let me just say this: there are now more superdelegates outstanding than pledged delegates, and to me, Barack has shown electability. He's shown perseverance. He has shown he can win in big states, small states, east, west, north, south. And it's now time for the superdelegates to begin bringing this process to a close and announcing their preferences. As David mentioned at the outset of this call, even during the height of the Reverend Wright episode, the superdelegates were announcing 2-1 for Barack, and I have no reason but to believe that is what is happening at least at that rate, if not higher. But now it's time for the superdelegates, as we wind our way down through the last states, to announce their preference, and I look forward to working with them on that. And with that, let me introduce my colleague from Massachusetts, who was one of the first governors to support Barack and has been out there day in, day out, and that's Deval Patrick.
Thank you, Janet, and thanks everybody for joining the call. Listen, I think that Democrats are on fire in this country, and Barack Obama has a whole lot to do with that. He's brought an energy and an excitement that we haven't seen in generations, and it goes beyond Democrats to the point that Senator McCaskill was making. It is Republicans and independents as well, people who I think, like in many respects, a majority of folks in the country who aren't buying 100% of what either party is selling. They're trying to choose a leader and someone who will be unifying, and that's what Barack Obama has brought. I've traveled all over the place for this candidate and for this campaign, and I've just been floored by the kind of excitement and energy that's happening at the grassroots. And again, I think that's important, not just for Democrats, that's important for the democracy, and we have Barack Obama to thank for that. And I think it's exactly that kind of strength that we need if we're going to build up the party in the South and in the West and in a whole host of places that had been written off by some of the Democratic pundits and pollsters and strategists in the past. We're competing everywhere, and we're winning everywhere, and it's the kind of strength we're going to need to expand our majorities in the House and the Senate as well. So that's my 2 cents. I want to pass it on now to Senator Klobuchar.
Well, thank you very much. You know, we kept hearing over and over the last few weeks from the chattering class that Barack would have trouble last night because of problems with middle-class voters. And the reality was he did well last night precisely by connecting with middle-class people. my state, Minnesota, is a state like Virginia and Wisconsin and Colorado that have very strong middle class and a very strong sense of independence. And if you don't believe me about Minnesota have a strong independent base, I have 3 words for you. That is Governor Jesse Ventura. And Barack did incredibly well in my state. People lined up. I still remember those caucuses lined up for hours to go and vote and to be part of the process. He unleashed an energy that has just been impossible to contain, and I think the message from last night was that it cannot be contained. You look at the numbers on Minnesota's Iron Range up in the 8th District, where my grandpa worked 1,500 feet underground in the mines, never graduated from high school, saved money in a coffee can to send my dad to college. Barack got 60% of the vote up there. He got 63% of the vote in the 1st Congressional District of Minnesota on the Iowa border. This is where a guy named Tim Walz just won 2 years ago. He has endorsed Barack because he believes that he will be the best person for him to run with. That was one of our most difficult seats that we picked up in the country. I was in North Carolina, South Carolina the last 2 weeks. I heard time and time again from our other candidates that are going to be running this time that the kind of energy and the new voters that Barack has brought out are going to help them to win their election. So this just isn't in Minnesota. It's in Iowa, Colorado, Wisconsin, North Dakota, states in the heartland. And I'm here to tell you that Barack's broad support that he has in our states, the fact that he's going to help these other other candidates on the ballot, just leads me to know that the heart of the heartland is with Barack Obama.
Thank you, Senator. Operator, we'll take some questions now.
Thank you. If you'd like to ask a question, please do so by pressing the star key on your telephone. Also, please deactivate any mute function before signaling to be sure your signal can reach our equipment. A voice prompt on your phone line will indicate when your line is open. And we ask that you please state your first and last name and your media outlet before posing your question. Once again, that's star 1 to signal for a question. We'll pause for a moment to assemble our roster. We'll now take our first question.
Hey, folks, Bill Salmon, Washington Examiner. If and when Hillary drops out, he arguably becomes the person with the most influence over Obama's prospects for success in terms of her effectiveness in convincing her supporters to make the switch. And yet these polls show a very large number of her supporters will not vote for Obama. How specifically do you deal with this problem?
Well, this is David Plouffe. I'll lead off, and then other folks may have thoughts on this. One, the Democratic Party is going to be unified. I think that this has been a fierce contest, rough feelings amongst both supporters' camps, but we're going to be unified. It's going to be a race against John McCain, who's going to continue every George Bush economic policy, obviously has the same position on the war in Iraq. The party is going to be unified. A unified Democratic Party in this year, I think, is going to be a very, very powerful force. And, the real question is, with a unified Democratic Party, who can make sure turnout is at the highest level amongst younger voters, African-American voters, disaffected voters? We believe Senator Obama has shown that ability in the primaries, and in the general it will be even more pronounced. And secondly, the ability against John McCain, who's a real threat with independent voters, who can do as well amongst independent voters as we need to win the presidency, and bring over some younger, moderate Republicans. And we think that that mix of strengths that Barack Obama brings to the general election is a very powerful thing. And it may take a little work, but I have a high degree of confidence that the Democratic Party is going to be unified, and everybody's going to be rowing very fiercely in the same direction to make sure we win next November.
David, this is John Kerry. Let me add to that, just for emphasis, that having been a nominee and having been in the middle of this fray and seen some of those kind of indicators at the moment of highest heat as to who might do what afterwards, there's no question in my mind. First of all, those measurements right now are just not a good indicator of anything. They're taken at the heat of the moment. Many of those indicators were taken a few weeks ago at the height of controversy. They're just not accurate indicators, number one. Number two, once we are unified and once, Barack has secured the nomination, which we believe he will, then I think the party is going to be completely unified, and President Clinton and Hillary Clinton and the vast majority of their supporters are going to turn their attention to winning, because everybody understands that's what this is about. Thirdly, there is an enormous amount of time still ahead of us from June, July, August. The summer goes by. A lot of the intensity that is felt today is going to completely shift to national events, to international events, and to the fundamental choice between what is literally a third term of George Bush. That's becoming a little cliched, but take the cliche away. You know, he's for the Bush tax cuts, making them permanent. He wants to continue the policy that's currently in Iraq. I mean, you run down the list, it is a continuation, and Americans overwhelmingly want change, and that urgency and compelling desire for change is going to have a profound impact on those numbers you're looking at today.
We'll take our next question.
Yeah, hi, it's Gordon Trowbridge from the Detroit News. A question for David. There's been a lot of speculation and looking at the math about how Michigan and Florida now may or may not be a crucial part of what's left in the nomination fight. The Clinton campaign is clearly making it a major part of its strategy. I wonder if the events of last night change in any way the campaign's stance on Michigan and Florida, or give you any more room to be a little more forgiving in whatever solution emerges there because of the delegate lead you have and the small number of remaining delegates.
Well, first of all, the so-called Gang of Four sent out a letter recently, which was very meaningful because they very clearly said they did not think the results of the January 15th primary should be used to allocate delegates, undermining the Clinton position. So there's a proposal out from the Gang of Four. It's something we're looking at. We're talking to them. We'd like to see this resolved. Certainly, if it's not resolved by the time we're the nominee, it's going to be resolved, both in terms of the seating of the delegations, as well as, most importantly, building winning campaigns in both Michigan and Florida. I'd add in Michigan, if you look at the aggregate of the public polls, despite Barack not having campaigned there, we are stronger against John McCain than Hillary Clinton is. So I think that what's clear is the results from January 15th in Michigan and January 29th in Florida, I don't think you're going to see those affect the outcome of this race, certainly in any way that would counteract what's been happening in these other states. But we're hopeful that there can be a resolution, and as we've said, there's a new proposal from Michigan, which I think this was an underappreciated moment, actually, because the Clinton campaign continues to suggest that the delegates should just be awarded based on the 15th in Michigan and the 29th in Florida, all the popular vote counted. And what the leaders in Michigan said was that's not the case. And so, we're going to continue to talk to both states, and hopefully there can be a resolution that satisfies all parties.
We'll go to our next question.
Hi, everyone. It's David Korn from Mother Jones Magazine and CQ. And since no one has done so already, let me ask the obvious question. When are you high-powered people going to say that it's enough for Hillary, that it's time for her to leave, that she can't win the popular vote, she can't win the pledged delegates, and that all she can do is make the case to an elitist case, that the insiders of the party are to believe that she's better in the fall than he is and must overturn the popular will, and do so in a way that can only lead to a 3-month-long fight from June 3rd until the first ballot at the convention. Why is no one prepared yet to say that's her only choice, not a good choice for the party, she ought to not go on?
As much as, this is Senator McCaskill, as much as we believe in Barack Obama and know what a great president he will be, there is sincere respect for Hillary Clinton within this campaign. Barack Obama just doesn't say those words. He means it. And I think that would be inappropriate and awkward and wrong for any of us to tell Senator Clinton when it is time for the race to be over. This is her decision, and it is only her decision. And we are confident that she's going to do the right thing for the Democratic nominee. We are confident that she will help work hard to unite our party, and as Senator Kerry said, that will happen. The stakes are too great, the potential for real change is so close that what we don't want to do right now is be disrespectful and be appropriately deferential to the strong campaign she's run and leave her decision for her to make on her terms when she thinks it's appropriate.
We'll take our next question.
Yeah, hi, this is Steve Rosenfeld. I'm from alternate.org. The Clinton campaign just said in their press conference earlier today, actually Jeff Garin said there are no rules when he was talking about what will come before the Rules and Bylaws Committee of the DNC. And he was referring to the seating of delegates and whether pledged delegates and unpledged delegates, how they will ultimately vote. And my understanding is the process doesn't stop at the Rules and Bylaws Committee. It also goes to the Credentials Committee, which meets a month later. So what's your understanding of how that may actually play out? And part of that, of course, was Howard Wilson said it's not 2025 anymore. The number is 200 is now 2,209. So that's what they're saying this morning. What's your response, please?
Well, this is David Plouffe, and then others may have thoughts on it. First of all, the number is 2025. That's not our number. That's the DNC number. I think what we're seeing here is another creative attempt to create some new metric that allows them to argue that there's some possibility in terms of the path to the nomination here. The Rules and Bylaws Committee will obviously, now these are their rules. They instituted these sanctions against both states last year, so in essence, they're being asked to reverse their own rules. And we'll have to wait and see with the meeting. Again, I think it's just not going to happen that Michigan and Florida are going to be used in some way to overturn the results of these other primaries and caucuses. And I think the Clinton campaign even today admitted that even if Michigan and Florida were to be fully seated, it would still leave them a large number away from the nomination number. But, we'll just have to wait and see. I think that obviously last night was important because we have now built our biggest pledged delegate lead we've had in the entire campaign, with only 217 delegates left. As I mentioned, we are within 172 delegates of clinching the nomination. And so we're just going to focus on that. And the Rules and Bylaws Committee will obviously meet and decide what to do. All we can say is we believe we're going to be the nominee of this party. When we are, we're going to make sure the Michigan and Florida situation is settled if it hasn't been already. And we are committed to building winning campaigns in both those states in November.
I'd just add, as John Kerry, that I do not believe that we are going to be going to Denver with credentials fights or with a lack of resolution. I am convinced that over the course of the next weeks, the superdelegates are going to exercise their judgment and responsibility. I think, as was mentioned here earlier, Governor Napolitano said that this is the moment, and I think that part of their responsibility is to prevent that kind of confrontation. Their responsibility is to do what they think is best for the party and the country. And I think that what happened last night when I said that this was a giant and decisive stride towards the nomination is that the superdelegates really will see what is happening, and they want to hold this party together. That is part of their responsibility. We will have a nominee, and I predict we will not have those kinds of fights. And ultimately, I think that the superdelegates will render the issue of Michigan and Florida moot, which the Clinton campaign seems to have already somewhat acknowledged.
We'll take our next question.
Hi there, it's Michael Saul at the Daily News in New York. I have two questions, one for the elected officials and one for David. For the elected officials, I guess this is somewhat of a follow-up to a previous question on this call. Do any of you believe that Senator Clinton's decision to stay in the race is hurting or damaging the Democratic Party? And are any of you willing to call on her to sort of reconsider or think very carefully about this decision? And then my question to David is, obviously we heard Senator Obama talk last night about unity among Democrats. Is the senator's campaign turning ever so slightly to a general election strategy, and if so, how?
Well, this is Governor Napolitano, and I would echo what Senator McCaskill said. I think that A decision whether to stay in or get out is for Hillary Clinton to make based on her own thinking, her own counsel, and all the rest. I do believe it important, however, at this point in time, for the superdelegates who have not yet announced their intentions to make that clear so that we begin the process of knitting the party together, getting ready for the general election campaign.
And I would, Amy Klobuchar, I would add that this is truly her decision to make. I have faith in both these people. I have always said that. I think that as long as this is resolved by June, I think we will be in very good position to go through with this campaign. And don't forget what's been going on here, especially on the Obama campaign side, in terms of the new voters that have come out because of the excitement generated by these caucuses. You look at the numbers in our state, 3 times the amount that we ever had. You look at what went on in South Carolina and North Carolina. People who had never even thought about registering before went to register to vote. So while it hasn't always been easy, it has also generated an incredible excitement that is just impossible to contain in this country. So part of my reason that I am not as concerned about this, even though it hasn't been an easy month, is that I have faith that this is going to work out because I know both these people, and I think it will.
And Michael, this is David Plouffe. We obviously still have a lot of votes to fight for, a lot of delegates to win, a lot of superdelegates to convince to support us. So, and Senator Clinton is a tenacious opponent who Senator McCaskill said we have a lot of respect for. So, first things first, we have to continue to fight as hard as we can to secure this nomination, and that's our first, second, and third goal. Obviously, we also don't want to wake up the morning of June 4th or June 10th or whenever this is going to end and not be prepared. So we're going to do the things we can in kind of our off hours here to be ready. One small thing we're doing, really just as a function of time, is we started a 50-state voter registration drive, working in partnership with parties and Senate and governor candidates. And I think one of the remarkable things in the last few contests, even in Pennsylvania, where Senator Clinton won, we registered well over 150,000 voters ourselves. The new registrants in Indiana and North Carolina, what we're seeing in Oregon and South Dakota, really I think bodes well for the fall. And so we're going to be working through this month and through the summer to make sure that by the fall we maximize the number of registered Democrats. So there's some things we can do to make sure that the party is in as strong a position as we can for the fall. But obviously our central mission is to secure the nomination, and that's going to be our core focus.
We'll take our next question.
Hey, this is Adam Smith with the St. Petersburg Times in Florida. David, understanding that the numbers look basically insurmountable for Clinton and you want to be prepared for the fall, why not just take the high road and make the Rules and Bylaws Committee's job easier and say, go ahead, let's give her the delegates. Let's give her maybe 19 delegates out of Florida and be done with it. Take this issue off the table and put America's biggest battleground state in play.
Well, I'd say, first of all, obviously we don't have any impact on what the Rules and Bylaws Committee does. As I mentioned, there's been a new proposal out of Michigan, and we've engaged in conversations with the relevant parties there. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion about remedies in Florida, and we have expressed openness to those. I think the Clinton campaign has been less willing to consider anything other than full seating of the delegates. And so, we're hopeful that dialogue will continue. And again, I don't think that the results of Michigan and Florida are going to be used in any way to overturn the outcome of this election. But by the way, and I think there was a Quinnipiac poll last week. Again, I think Florida is the one state where we probably suffer the most from lack of campaign activity compared to the rest of the country. And yet, it was a dead heat with us and John McCain. So we believe that Florida is going to be an enormously competitive state in the fall, and we're anxious once we get this nomination behind us to build a winning campaign in the state of Florida.
Question?
Hi, this is Susan Page at USA Today, and I have a question for David Plouffe that really follows up on Michael's question. You said that one of the things you do for the general election is to work on voter registration, but I wonder, are there other changes that we'll see now in terms of Senator Obama's message or perhaps his schedule, where he goes, that will reflect the fact that you feel this nomination, you can see the finish line for the nomination and you're now thinking about the general election?
Well, again, our core focus is continuing to obtain delegates, to convince superdelegates to support us, to campaign hard in these states. And, we have a lot of contests coming up here in a short period of time. Obviously, over the last couple of months, we have been trying to turn some attention to John McCain because there's such a fundamental difference between what a McCain presidency and Obama presidency would offer the American people. And I think that we're obviously going to be campaigning in some states that are going to be battleground states in the fall in these upcoming primaries, as we just did in North Carolina and Indiana. So I do think that, one of the silver linings about how long this has gone on is we will now, in just about every battleground state, both campaigns built really terrific organizations, registered a lot of voters, and Senator Kerry can probably speak to this. I mean, obviously he secured his nomination fairly early, so didn't have that opportunity to build campaign organizations in basically every battleground state. And I mentioned, Michigan and Florida have not had active campaigns, and so we're going to immediately invest a lot of time and energy in those two states, trying to get them up to the par with the other states. But that is one silver lining, is I think organizationally we're going to be in stronger position than Senator McCain is. And I think that's important because in Obama-McCain matchup, we're going to put a lot of states in play. And we think we're going to have the organizational and financial ability to do that.
We'll now take our next question.
Hi, this is Ira Tynowitz with Advertising Age. Senator Obama yesterday in his speech mentioned something about the fall campaign and expecting advertising attacks. What sort of advertising attacks? How extensive do you expect them to be? And do you expect them to be worse than 4 years ago? And the other question is about Rush Limbaugh and whether you're going to make any complaint to the FCC about some of the things about the stations running his program.
Well, I'll start off on the first question. I mean, we are obviously going to prepare for a lot of the same type of activity we saw 4 years ago. And you've got to assume that the Republicans, whether it's the McCain campaign directly, the RNC, or the 527s that I'm sure are going to sprout up in big numbers, they're going to run the same sort of misleading and sort of gutter campaigns we've seen in the past, and we're going to be ready for that. And, I think this is obviously... a couple of the elected officials on the phone mentioned this. This has obviously been a turbulent period for us, and I think to have the kind of performance we had last night, winning North Carolina by such a big margin, making Indiana much closer than anybody thought, and still in that period netting superdelegates at a rate of 2-1 over Senator Clinton, I think shows that Senator Obama has a toughness and ability to deal with adversity that is going to serve him well both in the general election and as president. And I think that, whether it was bouncing back after New Hampshire, whether it's bouncing back after Pennsylvania, obviously having a strong performance despite Reverend Wright. I mean, there was a report yesterday. Reverend Wright got more press attention last week than Senator Clinton did around the country. And so I think he's shown a real steeliness and an ability to deal with adversity and a calmness, which I think will serve the country well as its president.
Let me second that if I can, having been through that last time. I think Barack Obama displayed two very fine and significant presidential moments in the course of this campaign. The first was the speech that he gave in Philadelphia on race itself, which was a very important, significant speech politically, historically. And secondly, the way that he addressed the concerns of the last few weeks, again, calmly, directly, honestly, treated the American people like the adults that they are and want to be treated like, and with respect. And I think that was part of what occurred. And then finally, of course, with the gasoline issue, people again saw presidential leadership, somebody who wasn't going to take the easy political gimmick, but who was ready to make presidential decisions. So I'm very confident about his ability to stand up. Secondly, we operated at a very significant financial disadvantage because of the timing of our convention in 2004. And we had 5 weeks where the Bush people were able to spend primary money and we were on federal financing. So we were limited in our ability to respond, and we also miscalculated that the truth was sufficiently out there. The lesson learned by all Democrats everywhere is that you have to be responding in kind, not in kind, but with the truth, in the same amount, if not more. And that is something Barack has already done effectively in the Internet rumors that he beat back and in other attacks that have occurred. So, let the Republicans be on notice. We're knowledgeable. We know what to do. We're not going to stand for it. And we will have the resources to be able to adequately respond to whatever they undertake. And I think it's at their peril, because I think the American people are just fed up with it. They want a better dialogue. John McCain has promised a better dialogue, and part of the test will be to hold him accountable to whether or not he produces that.
Operator, let's take one more question, please.
We'll take our next question.
Hi, this is Tommy Christopher from AOL News. And my question was this. Well, I wanted to make a statement first. I've spoken to a lot of voters in the last couple of weeks, and almost unanimously they've said that a ticket that features both Senator Obama and Senator Clinton would be a guaranteed winner in November. And so I wanted to know, at this point, is there any way to even avoid such a ticket? I would like to hear from the panel what they think about that. And also, I'd like what Senator McCaskill had to say about respecting Senator Clinton's decision-making process. What would you think about the uncommitted superdelegates and the party leadership going to Senator Clinton in private and saying, we've decided this thing, but here's the vice presidential nomination. You can make an acceptance speech instead of a concession speech.
Well, go ahead, John.
No. I was going to say I thought the campaign manager was going to.
Oh, sorry. Well, I'd say, listen, Senator Obama has said, and I think Senator Clinton has said, that all this talk is very premature. We still have a number of contests in front of us, and as I mentioned, our core focus and Senator Clinton's core focus is on these remaining contests and the undecided superdelegates, and that's what our focus is going to be on. And obviously, when we secure the nomination, that's a decision that Senator Obama will need to make about who he wants to choose as his running mate. But I think it's premature to be talking about who that might be and timing of that.
Well, I want to thank everybody for getting on the call. Senator Kerry, Senator McCaskill, Governor Patrick, Governor Napolitano, and Senator Klobuchar. Thanks for taking the time today. Thanks, everybody, for dialing in.